Well, thank you for joining us here today, and thank you for watching online across the state and actually across the nation today. We'll explain more about that in a moment. My name is Bruce Gordon. I'm with the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. Summer is officially upon us, and that means that we're going to be driving to the cabin, maybe taking on a home improvement project. And we might be, if you have a pickup truck, you might be helping folks move during the summer months as well. And of course, if we're doing that, we're moving more than just people in our vehicles. We're moving a lot of things that might be in the back of that pickup truck or that vehicle. It's important, obviously, to secure that load. Our vehicles do carry more than people, and getting everything from point A to point B is certainly an advantage to many of these tow vehicles. But if those items that are in the vehicles fall off between point A and point B, it can cause significant problems for people that are on the road and, unfortunately, life-altering injuries. For Robin Abel of Seattle, Washington, an unsecured load caused catastrophic injuries to her daughter. A 40-pound board flew through her windshield, blinding her for life. Robin's efforts to make load securing a standard practice have led to today's inaugural Secure Your Load Day. Lieutenant Tiffany Nielsen with the Minnesota State Patrol is here, and she's going to talk about the dangers of unsecured loads and the crashes that result and what we can do to safely move our items from point A to point B.
Good morning, and thank you. My name is Lieutenant Tiffany Nielsen with the Minnesota State Patrol. Take a look at these items behind me. They're items that you think you would see typically in your neighbor's garage or maybe at a thrift sale. But all of these items were recently recovered along the sides of our Minnesota highways by MnDOT personnel. When you think about a small rock or pebble hitting your windshield and the sudden loud noise and the impact that has, comparing that to the mass and the size of these objects, a 20-pound object hitting a vehicle at 55 miles per hour has an impact of a half a ton. These are extremely violent collisions, and when you've talked to individuals that have experienced this, the sound is like an explosion hitting their vehicle. Each year in the United States, there are 51,000 incidents where injuries or death have occurred due to load securement, 444 people killed, and 10,000 injured. I can tell you from firsthand experience, having been to crashes that are both serious injury and fatal injury crashes, that load securement is incredibly important and incredibly deadly. But more often what we encounter is motorists who hit objects, damaging their vehicles, getting multiple flat tires, sometimes several vehicles in a row pull over, and those are costs that are incurred by the motorists. When you look at these, determine who the owner was, and in fact whether they even knew a load was lost. So in those situations, the citizen is incurring the cost through their insurance provider to repair damage to their vehicle due to the negligence of another person. The law in Minnesota requires that the load be secured in such a way that it does not drop, shift, spill, or blow out of the vehicle. Now, for a passenger vehicle, that essentially means that that load needs to be secured in such a way that none of those actions happen. Tow straps are the best way you can secure your load. If you are able to move your load in an enclosed trailer or enclosed vehicle, that's even better. Very low likelihood that anything is going to shift in that situation. Tightly pack objects. Never assume that the weight of an object is sufficient load securement. Every object, whether it's a weight stack or a four-wheeler, should be secured with tow straps and safety chains to ensure that load does not come free. When we do recover these objects for the State Patrol, this is an emergency response, light and siren response. We know that these objects in the roadway are going to cause a hazard to motorcyclists, to vehicles swerving, and they're going to suddenly swerve into a lane adjacent to them to avoid that object. It's a very high-risk situation. So we respond lights and sirens to remove these objects. We work closely with MnDOT that as we slow the traffic down, the worker might run out and retrieve this object. So we also want to remind motorists about the move over law. When they see flashing lights stopped along the side of the road, move a lane away to allow the safety personnel to go out there, remove this object safely from the road. As a motorist, if you're involved in an incident where you lose an object, do not run into the freeway to retrieve it. Freeways are incredibly fast, incredibly dangerous. Call 911, move as safe as you can away from the area, and we will respond and remove that object from the roadway on your behalf. People can expect to get a citation for this. It is an offense if you lose an object on the roadway. If you injure or kill somebody, we have seen cases in Minnesota where gross negligence has been proven, and we've been able to charge those individuals with criminal or vehicular homicide. To date, January 1st to today, the State Patrol has responded to 2,749 debris calls in the metro area and 5,178 debris calls statewide. So those are calls for an object in the lane. We respond lights and siren to that object. Is there any questions? Absolutely. I can hold it for you.
Okay. Who would you say are the biggest offenders? Would you say they are professional drivers, drivers of semis or other trucks, or are they sort of average Joes and Janes who are, moving for the weekend or something else? Who's the greatest offender?
Most of these objects that we've recovered are from average citizens. Commercial vehicles have a lot of regulations and how they secure loads. There's a required number of straps, there's a required number of width or safety chains based on the load. For the average citizen, the regulation really is, as long as it doesn't shift or fall off, that's the level of standard. So we do see sometimes people use inappropriate securement methods, maybe a rubber hose, maybe I've seen a person who has secured a load with minnow bucket line, just a nylon rope, which would not be sufficient to withhold an object. Tow straps allow you to ratchet down and secure that object. You can see the mattress. Those have an incredible amount of surface area, and that surface area correlates to lift. If you strap that to the top of a vehicle, there's going to be a lot of upward pressure on the bottom of that mattress. That's going to push up, and if that's not secured tightly, that mattress is going to very easily lift off, fly through the air, and land in a lane of traffic.
Is that the most common item you find, mattresses?
Probably the most common item is ladders. You can see aluminum ladders because those are put on and off vehicles pretty often, and maybe not with good securement devices. Aluminum ladders ricochet around, vehicles hit it, they get kicked into the lane. Tire marks that it has been run over. So ladders are a very common item in the lane. Mattresses, lawn furniture is also very common. Things that people are moving from home to home that they're not necessarily taking the time to put in an enclosed trailer. It is the frequency of lost loads is a daily occurrence in the metro area. Our troopers are responding several times a day to this type of event. It is very common, and motorists are most at risk for damaging their vehicles. That's typically what we do see. But there are cases where people are seriously injured or killed, either trying to retrieve it or having to stop in a lane of traffic and getting struck by a vehicle that doesn't know what's happening in front. So very dangerous. Things happen very quickly when loads are lost.
But what is your impression about the tickets that you issue? How many are dismissed and how many are not? I'll just tell you, we ran a check. We found that half of all the tickets issued for unsecured loads are eventually dismissed. That's not your deal, I get it, but...
Well, I will tell you, when we're issuing the citation is when the load has been lost. So something has happened that precipitated that action. We're able to identify the driver. Now, looking at these objects, we don't know who owned these objects. There are loads that are lost that we're never able to identify who lost that load, even in cases of fatal or serious injury crashes. So people aren't always aware they lose the load, but if they do lose it and they're cited, we would expect there's a penalty for that.
Warnings are issued if something doesn't fall off, right?
Correct. So sometimes we'll see a load that looks loose or moving around. We'll pull that person over, have them re-secure that, and get them on their way with a written warning.
Do you want people to call in if they see a loose load?
They should. I mean, if you see something unsafe on the roadway and it's a risk to the public, please call 911. We will dispatch an officer to that area. If you do see a load come off of a vehicle, do not stop and try to retrieve it. Move over. Even you can turn your hazards on for the traffic behind you, let them know something is coming. Unfortunately, we have a lot of drivers that are distracted and they're not always watching eyes to the horizon. That's another thing you can do for your own precaution is always scan down the roadway, anticipate. If you see heavy braking, move away from that so you can try to avoid whatever might be ahead.
Is this on a par with texting and drinking?
As far, well, certainly danger would be equivalent because the consequences can be the same. But I think we don't have as many loads being moved by as many people as we do drivers that have a cell phone in their hand.
Is there a seasonal component to this that you see it more often than others?
Certainly. With summer conditions, more people are moving things up to their cabins. Boats, we had a boat get lost on Kennebec County Road just within the last couple of weeks.
That was crazy, the boat, by the way. Did you find out whose boat that was? I figured that would be
With registration. Kennebec County Sheriff actually took that call, so they probably have more information, but a citizen did stop, and this boat was right in the middle of a 2-lane highway and fell right off of its trailer.
Other thing, do you know there's this case a couple of years ago of a guy, it was a mattress motorcyclist, we were just talking about it. The mattress was tied down with, what was it?
Like rubber tubing.
Twine. It was twine that was tied down with. That guy, the driver, did not get, I think it was not a negligent, I mean, they did not prove gross negligence. He was never criminally prosecuted. Do you know what the standard is for that? What do you need to do to prove gross negligence? I would think, twine on a mattress would be pretty close.
It certainly would be very common sense, you would think, to have a very secure type of securement method. That's why I say tow straps are really the best. But we see bungee cords. We see twine and rope, like I said, minnow bucket rope. I mean, people don't realize, I think, the risk that they're taking. And when you're on a highway, the speeds are higher. So there's a lot more force acting on that vehicle. If you're taking a side street or city streets, you might be able to get away with a less valid securement method, although we wouldn't recommend it. But as soon as you get into those higher speed conditions, there's a lot of force acting on that load. Which is why I say weight in and of itself is not enough to secure the load.
I know you kind of talk about tow straps, but if you're obviously like a non-commercial operator, I mean, is there any absolute standard that you have to adhere to for tying things down?
In Minnesota, the only requirements that are very specific are for commercial vehicle drivers. The law in Minnesota for load securement is more of a common sense threshold. It cannot drop, leak, blow, or come loose from the trailer or the truck or vehicle that's hauling it. So if it's going to shift, then and fall off, it's then violated the law. Yes, also another very good point. In trailers, making sure that the safety pin is in place and the safety chains are in place. We do sometimes see that where the safety chains are not attached, and obviously the trailers have to have functioning lights as well. So there's really a lot of responsibility when you're moving furniture or an object on a roadway to ensure all those safety things are met before you depart from your location, and even periodically stopping and checking to make sure your load has stayed secure, because commercial drivers are required to stop within 150 miles. The average citizen is not required, but it is still good common practice is to make sure your load is secured after you've gone a few miles.
These rules and regulations enhanced on your website that the person who's trying to move from point A to point B can go on the website and see what the regulations are, how to
There is some information on our commercial vehicle website for commercial vehicle drivers, but there's not information specific to regular loads. Yes. Okay.
You made the straps around?
What was that?
You made the straps around?
Tow straps? I don't have any, but maybe MnDOT's got some in the building.
I'd love to see you tie something down.
Sure. I know how to use them.
I volunteer Peter. You can tie Peter down.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
See, just briefly, and you can take shots, and we'll try to get some straps. I just wanted to say welcome to Robin Abel of Seattle. I know she was watching online. Robin, thank you very much for your efforts to inaugurate this Secure Your Load Day. So thank you for watching and joining us. And thanks everybody for being here. Lieutenant Nielsen will be around if you need any additional information. Thank you.
Okay.